Before Putin invaded Ukraine, Doug, gas had gone from Trump's last week in office, $2.93 a gallon, up to $3.76 a gallon. Before Putin did anything. Yet those stats that I'm citing, you're not going to see them in the corporate media. Well, I have been saying on my news agency, BillO'Reilly.com, and on the radio that Mr. Biden is the third most incompetent president in the history of our country, after James Buchanan, who led us into the Civil War, and Herbert Hoover, who couldn't handle the Depression. So Mr. Biden gets up there, and I knew what he was going to do before he even started speaking. He was going to give excuses why inflation is running about 10%. Now, remember, this is the key. When Trump left office, inflation was 1.4%. Trump had to deal with COVID and a complete shutdown of the economy in America, okay? Yet, the inflation rate was 1.4. Biden comes in, same COVID, no difference, except it was a little bit better with the economy wasn't shut down. And now we're running about 10% if you add in the food and all the other things to the inflation rate. You go from 1.4 to 10 in 16 months. So that's a stunning defeat for anybody. What does Biden do? He gets up in front of the country and he says, it's Putin's fault and it's COVID. And the corrupt corporate media, instead of just hooting him off the stage, doesn't do much. Not much reaction to it. And I'm saying, is this just all propaganda all the time now? And I'm not coming at this from any kind of a party or ideology. I'm a fact-based guy. And what the president is telling the American people is false.
Well, it seems to me that that bias has increased by an order of magnitude since you were doing the O'Reilly factor, for example. It's flat out open right now.
Well, to the media, the goal isn't to inform the American people about why their wages are shrinking and why their stocks and their 401ks are going down. Media doesn't see that as their obligation anymore. The media sees their obligation as protecting the guy they supported so that Donald Trump wouldn't be president. That's basically it. The Biden people know that. They know they're not going to be scrutinized by the White House press corps or the network news. Cable's a different animal. But the network news and the White House press corps, they're going to go along with whatever Biden says. Yeah, there might be a few questions here and there, but Biden's not going to be roundly mocked in the New York Times or the Washington Post for putting out this crazy, insane scenario that Putin caused all these gas price rise. Before Putin invaded Ukraine, Doug, gas had gone from Trump's last week in office, $2.93 a gallon, up to $3.76 a gallon before Putin did anything. Yet those stats that I'm citing, you're not going to see them in the corporate media.
I think that people are looking for those strong constitutional conservatives that are going to go there and abide by the rule of law and once again reestablish our economic security, our energy security, our national security. And when you look at what happened last week, in a place like San Francisco where that district attorney got recalled, there's not going to be a conservative that replaces him. But again, people are concerned about crime and the things that they see happening on the street. They're concerned about the homeless situation. So I think that if you're out there running on a strong agenda that is about reestablishing the rule of law and once again fixing some of these issues that are really kitchen table issues for the American people, I think you're going to find success.
What are the chances that Joe Biden is going to step down before 2024?
I mean, you gotta call the DNC and ask them that. I don't think they want that to happen, because that becomes a huge story. And then who steps up to fill that void? Because
Who does? Let me ask
well,
you that.
if it's the vice president, that's not a win for you in any way, shape, form, or fashion. So I don't know if the Democrats want to right now show that level of weakness, because that's exactly what we will see. And furthermore, it will be political turmoil for their party. But they've got to change course, because they're going to suffer a really big defeat in November 2022. And you remember, I came into Congress in that first midterm election of Barack Obama, 63 seats, the most ever since, I think, World War II.
They lost 63.
Lost 63, absolutely. So I see that happening again, but whether or not they'll change course, you would have thought they would have done it after Virginia, but they still haven't.
You know, I always question, I have this little bit of hesitation about calling races or, you know, a red wave in November, given the fact that we're still almost 5 months out now. So much can happen. It's like trying to predict the future, and you can't see, you don't have a crystal ball. None of us do. We don't know what's going to happen in terms of politics or political decisions that are made between now and then, or natural disasters that may completely change America's perspective. Is it what you're knocking on wood or something?
If they don't go back and reestablish American energy independence, they're done. If they don't do something about the inflationary atmosphere right now, they're done. If they don't do something about bringing back our supply lines away from China and these things, and really just say, you know, we went down the wrong path, they're done. And I don't know if that's going to happen between now and November, because it really seems that they are entrenched in this new wave. And the other thing that is really going to hurt them is when you look what is happening in schools. People are not happy about this indoctrination that they see in schools. And just last weekend here in Dallas, where you had the Drag Your Kids to Pride event, you know, when you have children going into a gay bar to see a drag queen show, that is really going to have people stand up and say, that's not what I want for my child.
You know, that story is really troubling, and it seems to be happening in more and more cities across the United States. There is an organization, apparently it's based in San Francisco, that runs these, bring your kids to the library for a
drag queen story hour.
Drag queen story hour.
And in New York City, they're using taxpayer funds to bring that into the schools. Instead of them teaching our history, instead of them teaching math and reading, I mean, the United States of America is not doing very well with education right now. In Texas, you know, where we sit right now, we're toward the bottom tier in education in the United States of America. So the last thing we should be doing is dragging our kids to a drag queen show. We should be dragging them to a place where they can get math, they can get science, they can get history, they can get civics education.
Let's start now with the economy and the president's latest on inflation. Your appearance is timely here because he just addressed his plan to combat inflation. It's a program called Tackling Inflation, and when I first heard it, I was struck by how similar it sounded to me to the Whip Inflation Now program of the Gerald Ford administration. I don't know if you're old enough to remember it, but I do remember it, and it was a big flop. He blamed, in many respects, everybody but himself for this. What were your thoughts as you saw it this morning?
Yeah, that was my big takeaway. And it sounded like I was listening to a Democrat campaign speech from like 20 years ago. I mean, he was trying to scare people on Medicare and Medicaid and senior citizens. I mean, it was the same old playbook from Democrats going back 20 plus years. And it really had nothing to do with inflation. And when you look at it just today, we saw that the average price of gasoline reached the highest level in the history of our country. And Americans are feeling it at the pump. I looked it up, and 2 years ago today, it was $1.83 a gallon. You know, what was the big thing that's changed between then and now? It's not just the war in Ukraine. It was their war on energy, and that's one of the big telling signs. I mean, people are viewing this economy no longer through the unemployment rate or the jobs claims. They're seeing it at the price when they go to the checkout, whether it's at the gas station or the grocery store. And that's how they're rating this economy, and why so many of them are rating it bad.
In those days of lower gas prices that you just mentioned, we were also energy independent, which we no longer are. He also made no mention at all, a glaring omission, that the Fed has been printing money like it's going out of style. That, in and of itself, is primarily the basic root cause of inflation, is it not?
No, absolutely, and reckless government spending, and even some of his Democrat-leaning or liberal-leaning economists predicted that his spending spree, especially last year when it came to the last COVID relief bill, was going to escalate inflation, and that prediction came true. And yet, Joe Biden doesn't take any blame for that. In fact, he blamed his predecessor. He blamed Donald Trump for COVID relief at the height of the pandemic, but also fails to mention that his party controlled the House of Representatives when they did that. And so it wasn't just Americans' memories are a lot better than Joe Biden's, and I think that they remember the good times that we had going prior to the pandemic, and what they see right now is nothing short of a 180 from what we had, and I think they also know the differences in policy, the policy changes, the war on energy, and all of the things that this administration has done to exacerbate the issue, not make it better.
Well, a part of the Republican problem, which the president cited today, was Senator Rick Scott of Wisconsin's plan for the economy. Never mind the fact that Senator Rick Scott is from Florida. But he talked about his plan for tax increases. Newsflash to the President of the United States, Senator Mitch McConnell, the minority leader of the Senate, has rejected Rick Scott's plan. To quote Senator Mitch McConnell, "We will not have as part of our agenda a bill that raises taxes on half the American people and sunsets Social Security and Medicare within 5 years." That's a non-starter for Republicans.
Absolutely, and aside from Senator Scott, and Senator Scott was even on one of the networks today saying his plan is not the Republican plan, it's just his plan, his ideas, right. And he's trying to gather information. So this is not the Republican platform, and it won't be the Republican platform. And I work for the America First Policy Institute. We are the think tank for America First policies, and I can tell you that those things are not part of any kind of America First platform. And so I get it. The president's going to try to tag every Republican with one person's thoughts, and politicians do that typically, but the American people see right through it. And for a president who campaigned on accepting the blame, not passing the buck, he's certainly not living up to that campaign promise either.
Hi, I'm Doug McKelway, and thank you for watching Centerpoint. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Leave a comment below and keep the conversation going by sharing this video with a friend who needs to see it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.